Hello, today we're going to talk about some free motion quilting designs. I'm Andy from True Blue Quilts. You can see more at truebluequilts.com. Here you can see my latest long arm project. A customer brought me this quilt that was pieced rows of triangles. The triangles are in various sizes. So you can see some of the smaller triangles, medium size, and large size. I took this as a challenge to use a different free motion quilting design in every row. As we look at the quilt in detail, I am showing you the background of the quilt, the backing on the left-hand side, the pieced portion of the top of the quilt on the right-hand side, and then I will show you a sketch of each design. This first picture shows several of the plain borders along with one of the rows of medium-sized triangles. Starting with the lollipop design, you can see it as a combination of simple circles and straight lines. The horizontal lines represent where I travel stitch along the seam of the piecing between the rows. For the claw, I just took a basic feather design and changed the curved aspects of the feather to more of a spiky stitch there. And then the diamonds are based on a continuous curve pattern. Usually you see the continuous curve with squares, but since I'm working with triangles, I was able to hit the midpoint of two of the sides of the triangle along with the very tip of the triangle to get the top of my diamond as I moved along the row. The next design is a fern. I took the curved pointy aspect of the claw design and used it on both sides of that center line, a symmetrical tree type design that would fill the whole triangle. Then we moved on to the ribbon. This is stitched with two passes across the quilt. The first pass is your basic meandering line to establish where that ribbon is going to end up. The second pass echoes the first stitched line and crosses it at several points. Basically, where that curve changes direction is where you want to cross your lines. And as you sketch this and play with it, you'll get a better feel for where to cross those meandering lines to give you that 3D swirling ribbon effect. The next row shows the largest triangles that I was able to work with, along with the plain rows and some medium triangle designs. For the clamshell free motion design, I start with those basic arches along the widest bottom edge of my triangle, and then echo stitch along the right hand side as if I were stitching left to right, and then I need to backtrack a little bit from the right to get to the middle point so that the next row is offset by half of that arch each time. And so you can kind of see in my sketch there how I work my way up and have some partial arches on the edges of my triangle. And then once you reach the tip of your triangle, you can travel along that seam line down to the bottom edge and move across again. For the triangle fan, I stitched smaller triangles to make that curved aspect, that fan, that arch looking design, and I did use a ruler to make sure my stitching lines were as straight as possible as I stitched those triangles. For the hill design, this is freehand. I put in some spine lines, kind of that chevron zigzag look, and I would draw or stitch maybe one V and then fill in both sides in alternating directions with the wavy lines, and then draw another V and stitch the wavy lines again as I went across the quilt. More designs for the medium triangles. I added a swirl on that claw edge. I just tilted the claw so it went along one side of my triangle between two of the points and then filled in the remaining space with a small little swirl. The sunrise design, I made a basic arch along the bottom of my triangle and then filled in the rays of the sun to fill in the rest of the triangle. The rainbow is a filler design for one of the plain spacing rows in the quilt, and same basic principle as the sunrise started out, just some parallel arches kind of echo that arch, making it a little bit bigger each time as you travel along the seam. And then you can see the vertical lines where I alternated the direction just to give the quilt a little more variety, to have the design going both up and down. More designs for medium and large triangles in these next several rows. I started with a basic switchback, parallel curved lines done freehand, easy to alternate the size there for the decreasing space in the triangle. A continuous curve with a loop, just stitch to the point of the triangle, draw a loop hanging down, and then curve back to the point of your triangle. E's and L's are great filler design for a plain border. Here I alternated the orientation, so I started my handwriting lesson in a normal upright direction and then stitched up to the top and did it upside down. Focusing on the designs in the large triangles, I started with a daisy stitch, a basic swirl, and then build the petals around that swirl. The seed pod, I stitched circles and then just filled in the space around those circles. I saw this seed pod design from Leah Day originally, and then a basic curve meander, just do a simple curve every so often as you meander across the quilt. The next rows bring back some of the smallest triangles we had to work with. Along the straight, or actually I put the loop meander in some of the triangles, changed it up a little bit. The continuous curve, I explained that concept of arching towards the points of the triangle. And then I did a basic sideways arch. Just take that rainbow design from an earlier row, tilt it on its side, and you can fill in the space across a triangle. In the medium triangles, I also quilted this mountain peak design, which is just echoing a V shape that I stitched with wavy lines. In some of the smaller triangles, I stitched a single leaf, and in other small triangles, I just hit the middle of each side to make a kind of a triangle within a triangle design. Still looking at the same section of this quilt, I will now describe the plain borders and the medium size triangles. I used the Wavy Piano key stitch in one of the plain borders, a pointy flower similar to the daisy, but just make the petals a little bit pointier, and then a seagrass design, which is just an arch with a tiny loop on the end, again inspired by Leah Day's gallery of free motion quilting designs. Moving on to the next plain border, you can see a leaf design, and then I'll show you the sketches for those large triangles, plain rows, and medium triangles. I filled some of the large triangles with this worm design. Take the basic idea of meandering, wavy lines, and echo the triangle shape there, so you keep that with long lines of stitching. A flame flower where I echoed the flame stitch and then drew some arches off to the side. In one of the plain rows, I did just a wave of spirals linked together across the line there, and flame spikes next, where I just varied the height of those spikes to fill the triangle shape. One last section of large triangles and plain borders. You can see an E and L stitch in one of the triangles, and then the clams, ovals with a wavy line through them, will work in a straight border. I love the figure 8 stitch. You can vary the height of this to fill triangles or stars and pinwheels, any type of design there. That stitch looks nice. Some angled wavy lines to fill the triangles. I alternated directions, give your quilt a little more interest. And then along the bottom border, I stitched a single feather. So I've done the wavy spine of the feather and then filled in the petals only on one side, inside the arch on each of those. So I hope that gave you some good ideas. There's about 35 different free motion quilting designs in this triangle row quilt.